I read the statistic, Jesse, that from 1970 till now, men nowadays spend 700% more time with their families than they did in the 1970s. 700% more. And I look at that and I'm like, we're spoiled.
How do you handle the separation between your families?
So I'll give you a couple of hacks. Hack number one is something you will not expect me to say. Number one, do some research. Instead of your speaking fee, we'd like to give you a franchise of one of our restaurants. Those franchises are 150 grand. That's a yes, bro. And so I send it over to my family office, and Ryan at my family office says, yeah, this is a no for us, bro. I go, why would this be a no? Like, this is normally 150 grand. It's this, that, and the other. He's like, Pace, you're going to lose $400,000 if you allocate your time towards this restaurant. And he says 1 hour of your time is worth $36,000 an hour.
I have goosebumps right now.
I'm like, this is sick.
What is up, my friends? I am here with Pace, I know you don't even need an introduction, but you're you're one of the few creators that I look at and I'm just like, man, you've built something so fantastic. It goes beyond yourself. It's a community, but it's almost like this soul in itself. It's almost like this, do you get where I'm going with that? There's like a soul that breathes and lives that's outside of you, and it's with the community that you've built. And I think there's very few amount of people in this world that have the gift, first off, to do that, and the second off, that are able to create leaders out of what you've been able to do. I think that's one of the things that I admire most about you, is that you've been able to pull people from your community, uplift them, and you've turned them into, or you've brought that creative leadership skill out of those people that are, out of your group. I'm sure you have over 10,000 people in the group, but dude, you've been able to do that so consistently. And I'm probably thinking, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here. At one point, you probably weren't a leader, but then you realized, or something must have happened to you at a certain point where it's like, I'm not leading people the right way. And maybe you started to lead, and then you taught you're teaching now what you've learned over the years. Does that make sense? You get where I'm going with that? 100%. That leadership capability? Am I right or wrong on that?
I think as a visionary, I always see things differently. Same thing with you. You're a visionary, right? You have a plan. People want to follow the man with the plan. And I didn't realize that until I was probably about 30, that I was the man with the plan. I remember when I was younger, one of my brother's friends and I, all three of us, were walking to a gas station from my house just to get snacks. You're like 13, 14 years old. And my brother's friend goes, you know what, Pace, one day you're going to drive a BMW and you're going to have you're going to lead thousands of people. And I was like, what makes you say that? He's like, you're just the man with the plan. I was like, okay, cool. I just was like the guy that if everybody was sitting around, I wanted to do something. I didn't want to just sit around and do nothing. I was like, let's go do this, then this, then this. And then I think I really refined my visionary skills and created the vision for my community 5 years after I realized I had the capability to do it. I didn't know the avenue I was going to do it. I just knew I had the power because my visions are weird. They're not just in color. They're not just in 2D. They're not in 3D. I see visions in 4D. I see how things are connected. My wife says, you think in symphonies, which is kind of cool. And so when I dreamt up the Sub 2 community, it took a 26-foot whiteboard to write it all out. And It was a 26-phase whiteboard. I took the whiteboard and I cut it into 1-foot slices, and I drafted. I was like, here's phase 1, here's phase 2. And so every single foot was a phase of the community. And right now we're in phase 7 of 26.
Holy smokes. So you're in the second inning still.
I'm in second inning, man. We haven't even started. There's things that I'm working on. I've been working on for 2 or 3 years that won't even show up for 5 more years from today.
That's freaking nuts, man. So I think that's so cool, because when I talk to entrepreneurs that have the visionary mindset like you do, I feel like I have that too. But
you definitely do, bro.
It's one thing to see something, and this is again another thing that I really, and this is not like a pump pace up kind of thing. This is, you will take somebody that you probably suck at integration. Am I right on that, or do you have a little bit of that?
I have a little bit of it, but I should not be doing it. And the fact is, I'm decent enough at it that it actually becomes a problem, because I can convince myself, I'll just do some integration, which is the absolute worst way to allocate my time. So I think that somebody has a little bit of integration is actually worse than somebody that doesn't have any, that obviously knows I should not be doing it. I convinced myself, oh, it's okay to spend a little bit of time in integration for a couple of years until I finally had to like punch myself in the face and get the hell out of there.
Yeah, I hear you on that. So you were able to step away from that then, and now you have integrators that are integrating in your business. So you're
So I have,
thinking,
if you look at my business, I have 3 main integrator partners. So I have Molly Tennant, Cody Barton, Josiah Grimes. All
right.
3 of them run independent silos of 4 or 5 businesses underneath each silo. And they are my integrators. And then underneath there, I have operators who actually do the operations underneath the integrators. So I constantly I wake up in the morning and go, what am I going to create today that will actually change my vision and make my vision come to fruition, because I have nothing holding me back. So like, for example, acquisitions in real estate. I'm in a point now where this year I'll probably buy close to 1,000 doors in primarily seller finance, sub 2 multifamily is like my primary buy box right now.
Yeah.
And I will buy that many doors this year without being involved a single minute in acquisitions, a single minute in negotiations, follow up, and then also nothing involved in property management. Like I have a whole team that's doing that stuff now. And more importantly, not only do I have a team, I have somebody running that team. And then above that, I have somebody running that person. So nobody bothers me with anything. Like no problems ever hit my desk anymore. That started about 2 years ago.
Dude, I love that, man. Yeah, I talk to a lot of people that are getting into real estate, and they're like, I'm going to buy these multifamily deals, and I'm going to start cash flowing from day one. And I'm just like, multifamily, you're not going to make any money. And if you do, it's going to be on the sale, and it's probably going to be years from now that you even...
Yeah, it's 3 to 7 years minimum. And I tell people, like, if you're going to jump into multifamily, you better have active income coming in as well. Definitely your growth and your scalability is so much better on a multifamily side, but you have to have the patience of a saint.
Yeah.
And you have to weather some storms along the way. So I am so grateful I started in single family. It's my favorite asset class. And I think even like you look at a Grant Cardone or even some heavy hitters in the multifamily space, guess what? They started in single family too.
Yeah.
And like I just did an interview with Rod Cleef a couple of weeks ago in his Florida home. And he's like, so you're a single family guy. And I was like, well, Rod, I am also a multifamily guy, probably more so multifamily than single family, but I don't think people should be starting in multifamily. Why? Multifamily is better. I'm like, where did you start? Single family.
Yep.
I'm like, Rod, single family is the most like surefire way to get started. There's way more exit strategies. I mean, think about like multifamily. How many exit strategies do you have for multifamily? One. Long-term rentals. Maybe Section 8, right? Which is still long-term rental, just with a government program. Single family, dude, it opens up the world like to the Jesse Vasquez world, which is I can do midterm rentals. I can do Airbnb. I can do I can do arbitrage. I can do so many more things with single family. And so the world I live in today with integration, operators, all that kind of stuff is possible today because of single family. And I can afford to be patient in multifamily because of single family.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you on that. I'm 100% with you on that. I think I talk to people and they're always like, I'm going to cash flow and cash flows this and cash flows that. I'm like, man, you got to revisit the wheel. With multifamily, it's hard to do that. It's hard to cash flow. And if you do, it's a couple $100 a door. And granted, if that's happened, that's awesome. But you got to wait. You got to give that time frame to make things happen. I was looking at some notes, and maybe tell me if I'm wrong here. You own, and this is probably from the beginning of this year, maybe the end of last year, 300 single family homes, 325-ish. Yeah. Am I right around there?
Right on there.
20 burrs that you've done. So you've only done like a very small amount. And this is
I probably have 20 burrs in my portfolio. I've probably done 500 burrs.
500. And then 90% of those deals out of what we just talked about are your seller finance or a combo of creative finance, seller finance.
I would say that if you looked at so I have 2,000 doors in my portfolio. 300 are single family, 1,700 are multifamily with a combination of RV parks, mobile home parks, and apartment complexes. And I would say that I have less than 2% of my portfolio has ever had to use a loan.
Wow. That's freaking crazy. And you know what, man? You started Sub 2 3 years ago?
I started the Sub 2 community 4 years ago in June. So we're coming up on 4 years. So we're not quite at 4. And I've been doing creative finance deals for 9 years. And I lost everything 5.5 years ago. Lost literally everything. I had to start all the way over.
So 2019, basically.
2018. So September of 2018. So 4.5 years, what is that? 5.5 years ago. So it's been 5.5 years. I was doing construction, I had a big construction company, and I was accumulating rentals and doing a lot of wholesale. So at that time, I actually owned a HomeVestor franchise and I was a contractor. So for those of people that don't know what HomeVestors is, I was a We Buy Ugly Houses person. Like you see the billboards.
Yeah, I seen them. I remember that.
I owned the Arizona market for 5 years up until that point. So I had accumulated 43 rentals through sub-2 and seller finance. I was doing probably $500,000 a year in profit, net, like take home in wholesale. But I had a customer in my construction company that filed bankruptcy, and he filed bankruptcy to the tune of like $16 million of debt. And I was basically his largest creditor, and I lost everything. I was pouring money into his business. I basically was digging myself deeper into a hole. And the way to save myself and continue to pay my payrolls for my construction company was sell all my rentals, sell my personal house, start literally from ground zero. And I built a 2,000 door portfolio since winter of 2018 till today. So, basically right on the dot of 5 years, 2,000 rentals, $500 million in assets.
Dude, I have goosebumps right now. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that or not.
Freaking crazy. It's hard to even think about. It's crazy.
I have goosebumps because those losses, like you scraping to get your payroll, pick up payroll, I feel like that's part of the game. And if you haven't been in that spot in your entrepreneurial career, whatever it is you're doing, business, real estate, whatever, it's like this muscle that you learn to adapt, and you get this fortitude in your mind to just continue to build. And you look back on that and probably be like, man, I remember what that felt like that specific moment. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what that did to you in a way? Because again, I look at it positive. A lot of people are like, how can you ever say that? I feel like the worst moments in somebody's lives, that adversity that people get, that is the defining moment where 99% of people are like, I'm done. This is it. I'm going to go back to do what I did before. I'm going to be a construction worker again. I'm going to start an epoxy business. I know that was your first kind of go at it. I'm going to just go back to what I knew.
Entrepreneur journey. Yeah, that was my first thing. I look at all this stuff as the day the guy filed bankruptcy on me was also the day my daughter was born. So September 20th, 2018. It was a bankruptcy letter I received the day my firstborn biological child was born. And that letter was sitting shotgun in my car as I was driving to the hospital to meet my wife for us to deliver the baby. And I was sitting there going, okay, I have to compartmentalize what's going on in my life right now. I just got the worst news I've ever received in my life. Besides my brother, I had a brother that killed himself when I was 25, and that was horrible news. But outside of that, this was the worst news I'd ever received. And then also at the same time, I was having the most joyous day of my life, which was my wife and I couldn't conceive of a child for 6 years. Finally, this is my firstborn child. I'm about to watch my wife give birth. I had to compartmentalize what was going on. And I think as providers, you're going to have to do that. People out there right now, just let you know what I love about Jesse and his wife, I can tell you that they have gone through crap, like beyond crap than you could even imagine. You look at these people that are successful today and have built, a very special community of people that are crushing it on midterm rentals and crushing it on all the other things that Jesse teaches, but he had to go through a lot of crap. And in order to get through that crap, you have to compartmentalize in your brain you almost have to time block when you're willing to go through anxiety and go, okay, I know I should feel stressed out and anxious right now, but I'm going to compartmentalize and pretend like that's not going on so I can go create this other thing that will actually solve the anxiety. And then when you start thinking about it, you start stressing out. So I compartmentalized that moment, and I look back on it and I go, that was one of the greatest things that the universe could have delivered to me, because what it was is I kept telling myself, I'm going to go full-time in real estate. I'm running a very successful real estate business, but why was I running a construction company simultaneously? Like, I believed in the people who were fixing and flipping. Like it was Open Doors, Zillow, and OfferPad were my biggest clients. Yeah. And I believed in them more than I believed in myself, which is why I wouldn't get rid of my construction company, because my construction company was basically my way of mitigating my risk against myself and my lack of belief in myself. And that bankruptcy letter came in, and it was like, the universe is like, no, dog, like it's time. You like get rid of that bullshit, get rid of all that stuff. We're going full-time in real estate. And it was that moment that God, the universe, whoever came along and delivered the greatest gift professionally I ever received. So really grateful for that moment. And I also, there's a really cool thing. I was texting Alex Hormozy a couple of years ago, and we were going back and forth, and then he ended up talking about this online. I think it was one of the most important things I've ever heard him say. He says, imagine we were going to create a superhuman, like an absolute badass superhuman that could withstand anything, have the fortitude, have the wherewithal, be able to like basically conquer all things. But we had to create this person, right? Put them through things, challenge them, etc. If we were going to create them into a superhuman, we probably would not put easy things in their path. And I was like, oh, you're right. Like let's say you, Jesse, and I decided, hey, let's start a partnership where we're going to go create a superhuman, race. But we have to put these humans through trials, tribulations, failures, et cetera, to become that person.
Right.
We're not going to give them a chill life, bro. We're not going to give them a chill life. And so people think that entrepreneurship is a pathway to being chill. It is absolutely not, and nor do I want it to be. I mean, there are moments now, once you reach a certain level, another plateau, that now I've gotten through so much crap. I've been kicked in the face so many times, kicked in the balls so many times. I've had so many problems in my business that we've overcome through perseverance and figuring it out and being around the right people and getting mentors and all that kind of stuff, that now you wake up one day, 2023, 2024, and you go, wait, what's going on? Why is there nothing going on? Why is nothing going on? This seems weird that I don't have something going on. And I would say that the hardest point in my career is actually where I'm at now, where I am unsure of the next level. I'm unsure of what that looks like. And most people, I think, would even retire at the level I'm at. But I'm so used to grinding out and looking for the next challenge that I'm like, all right, I've hit a plateau that a lot of people would say, quit, you're done, move on. Yeah. Now I'm like, no. How can I stretch myself, and what do I have to put myself through to become that person that I really want to be?
Yeah, I love that, man. Are you in a position now where you're saying no to a lot of things, or are you in a position now? Because I feel like, you're like, you're miles ahead of me. Like, that's why I look up to you a lot, because of what you're building. But also, I don't see you saying no to a lot of things. And maybe this is just me seeing this from an outsider's view. I see you like doing your meetups, your community, creating that community. You're still going out and doing the things 4 years later now that you were doing 4 years ago when you first started, hopping in an Airstream, traveling the US, going to meet with your community. Like, essentially you don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to do that anymore, but you still are.
Yeah.
Do you get where I'm going with this? I feel like, and that's part of you wanting to continue to build that. Am I right on that? It's you still creating that. You're not saying no to things anymore. It's almost like,
I'm saying no to a lot of things, and I'll tell you the process I went through. Actually, Molly, my head of operations, she's like the buffer between all of my stuff.
Yeah.
Molly and I probably talk once a week, and last time we went through this practice, I actually have a coach that I paid like $100,000 for the year to go through my schedule, and like a time blocking coach cost me $100,000 because he coaches like, Tony Robbins and other people, and he only coaches on what to say yes and what to say no to. And he was like, here's what you need to do. Let's go through your calendar for the last 6 months, because I live and breathe by my calendar, right? I know where I'm going. Like, even this podcast, even though you and I are homies, I showed up on the minute, right? Because I was extracting every little last second of my previous meeting to get to where I am now in this meeting with you. And again, you guys, you and I are homies. Yeah. And so I show up on time. I do the thing. I live and breathe by my calendar. So my coach was like, all right, let's go back in the last 6 months on your calendar, and I want you to write down 100 things that are unique things that you did. Unique. Like if you went to a meetup in LA, you can't make another thing on your list that was like, oh, meetup in St. Louis the next week. That's one thing.
Right.
So he's like, list out 100 things. I'm like, dang, do I do 100 things? Bro, I did a lot more than 100 freaking things. It was like I had to stop. And so when I was going through my calendar and in reverse, I made a list of all 100 things, and it took me about 2 weeks to do this. It took me a long time, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, a couple hours, et cetera. So I compiled this list of 100 things, and my coach says, all right, now the next step is sit down with your head of operations and have her circle the things that she needs you involved with. And more importantly, you need to circle the things that give you energy, that you are in love with. You wake up in the morning, I am stoked on my 12-hour schedule. Because he's like, you're one of the, and I think you're similar to me in this regard. Like, you could put $1 billion in my bank account. I'm still going to show up tomorrow and do cool things, you know?
Yeah.
I have a mission on life, and I want to do a lot of things, change people's lives. This is one of the reasons why when I met you, you know, and we got to connect in was it Houston?
Houston. Yeah.
Yeah,
Rob's
Houston.
event. Yeah.
And we got to hang out that night in the VIP room with like your amazing wife and hang out and really like connect. Rob Abasola, who, you know, put that room together, I was like, yo, I want to sit next to Jesse because I look up to you too. I see you creating a similar mission. I see you part of the same path. So my coach is like, what gives you energy? What accomplishes the mission? What makes it so you don't need to convince yourself to get out of bed? Which I wake up, I get out of bed immediately. I'm excited for my day. But there have been times in the last 5-6 years where I look at my day and what I have to accomplish and I go, gosh, dang it, I can't wait to get through this day.
Yeah.
And that's part of the grind. That's part of the requirement. But in December, Molly and I sat down, we went through the thing, and I narrowed down 74 things off my list that I will never do again. And all of a sudden, my whole team, this is what I did. This is a very interesting practice. And I don't know that you're quite to this level yet. Jesse might be a couple steps behind me on this one, which I was a couple steps behind my coach as well. This is part of the game, right?
Yep.
And he said, here's what you should be doing. Your partners, your team members, they want to put you in a meeting or put something on your calendar, no problem. Just send them an invoice for an hour of your time. I was like, what? He says, yeah. He goes, do you know how much an hour of your time is worth? And I go, no, I don't know exactly what it is. He goes, well, that's a problem because how do you know what to say yes and what you say no to? And I was like, I just say yes to good opportunities. Like, well, how do you know if it's a good opportunity? I'm like, okay, well, because it helps me here and I make a little bit of money from it or whatever else. I'll give you a good example of an opportunity that I thought was a yes and he told me to say no to, that it's like crazy.
I'm excited. Let's hear it.
This is interesting. Okay. So I go and speak on stage, and normally I'm at a level now, and I'm not trying to be an asshole. I spoke on stage for 5 years for free, 6 years for free, 7 years for free. I'm at a point now where if you're not my friend, my company will charge you $75,000 for me to speak on stage. Okay.
Rightly so. Yeah.
And I draw a crowd, but most real estate people want me to speak on their stage so they can bring people into their seminars and all that kind of stuff. And they sell a product while I'm on stage. I'm not selling a product. I'm helping other people sell their product, and happy to do so because I believe in some of the products that my friends are selling. And so my friends are like, will you speak for me? I speak for free. Happy to do that. If I don't know you, my team, my company will charge you $75,000. Okay, cool. So I have this big event last summer that I get asked to speak on, 10,000 people. And they go, hey, instead of your speaking fee, we'd like to give you a franchise of one of our restaurants. And I was like, dope. Like, that's freaking cool. And
yeah.
Those franchises are $150,000. And they're like, we'll give you half of the franchise. You don't have to operate it. You just have to market and do a couple of pop-ups or meetups at this restaurant, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, that's a yes, bro.
All day.
And what I was going to do with that restaurant is I was going to give it to I have 6 transaction coordinators because we do so many deals. I was going to give my TC team, my transaction coordination team, ownership of that restaurant with me. So they have like a monthly check that comes in from that restaurant. I'm like, this is so cool. Sick.
Yeah.
I love this. This is going to be so fun. So I send the thing to my family office, and my family office, which is who manages my money and my relationship with my partners, and they look at all my business things, and they deal with whatever.
Right.
And so I send it over to my family office, and Ryan at my family office says, yeah, this is a no for us, bro. I go, why would this be a no? Like, this is normally $150,000. It's this, that, and the other. He says, well, let me tell you why. In the contract, it states that you need to spend about 5 to 7 hours a month on promoting, talking about blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, that's easy. I can somewhat do that. Not 5 hours, but like maybe, here and there, blah, blah, blah. It's not a big deal. He says it is a big deal, and I'll tell you why. This franchise at the end of the year is proposed to net like $100,000 for your 50%. And I'm like, right. Okay. And he says 1 hour of your time, based on what we've looked at, 1 hour of your time is worth $36,000 an hour.
Yeah.
Now that's not my take home, but that's how much I generate in my businesses. So He says 1 hour of your time allocated anywhere else will produce an extra $36,000 in income. So if it's not above that $36,000, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And I go, well, what's the equation here? And he goes, well, you're going to put in X amount of time. He's like, Pace, you're going to lose $400,000 if you allocate your time towards this restaurant versus allocating it somewhere else. So that's part of my measurement now, is that I have other people that rely on me on my team to make good decisions on where I allocate my time. And so my time coach was like, yo, if the thing you say yes to is not producing $36,000 an hour or more, then the answer is automatically no.
Yeah.
And it was 74% of the things that I was doing last year were an obvious no. And so now I have all this extra time. And he's like, even if you don't make money, I would rather you say no to things and sit on your couch than make $35,000 when you are worth $36,000. Yep. Go sit on your couch. You are not worth 35. You are worth 36 or more. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting mindset. And he says, so if we know you're worth $36,000 an hour, all your collective businesses will generate that much money. You know, you own this plant company, you own a lending business, a title and escrow business, you fix and flip, you buy and hold, all these businesses you own. Then what you should be telling your partners is, if you need an hour of my time, then I'm going to invoice the company for $36,000. And that was a mindset shift that was just mind blowing to me. And now nobody asked me to come into meetings. And all of a sudden I've got all this extra time that I can now go and do the things that give me energy, which is doing the meetups and connecting with human beings that were in the position you and I were in years and years ago, that are like, yo, Jesse, I need help. I need to get my first deal. Jesse, I need to get my first midterm rental launched. And you remember that the desperation, the lack of options, the lack of information, the lack of experience. And you, Jesse, and me are the guys that can bridge that gap of understanding. And it can't just be done through a video. Sometimes it needs to be done at a meetup. You know how many times I meet people in person, they go, I came to this meetup because I needed to make sure you were a real human being.
You're not a robot.
You're not a robot. You're not AI. I wanted to see you in person. So I'm saying no to a lot more stuff just in the last 5 months than I ever have before in my life. And I'm being able to double down on the things I truly want to do.
I love that, dude. I don't know where I heard this, or maybe this was from you, or maybe I don't remember, but I remember somewhere I heard that you were sitting in a room with Tony Robbins and you asked him something similar to that. And he gave you like an opposite, like a pen, literally, if we were looking at a pendulum, it was the opposite answer of what you just mentioned right now.
Yeah, really, it was really interesting. But also in the same, so I'm going to hang out with Tony in 2 weeks. I was just texting Tony this morning, and Dean Graziosi, I was texting them, and I'll ask him a similar question. But I feel like it was the same answer, but it was given in a more practical, like mechanical answer from my coach, right? So Tony's answer, just real quick for the people in the audience, I asked Tony a question. I said, Tony, what was the point in your career that you started saying no to stuff? And his answer was, did God put you on this planet to say no to opportunities? Or did God put you on this planet to find a way to say yes to opportunities? Become a person that's, worthy of team members that will allow you to do those things and whatever else. And so basically what I learned from my coach 8 months after I had that conversation with Tony was, well, Pace, what do you want to say yes to that you want to double down on? I'm not suggesting we say yes to everything.
Right.
And Tony wasn't saying, what Tony specifically said was, Pace, I'm going to trust that you know what an opportunity for you is and what one is not. Therefore, if you are asking the question of when do you stop saying or start saying no to opportunities, then Tony's answer was, you should never say no to opportunities, because if it's an opportunity for you, right, you wouldn't have asked the question the way you asked, right?
Right.
You would have asked the question of, hey, Tony, when do I start letting people down and saying no to things I don't want to do? And that wasn't your question. Your question was, when do I start saying no to opportunities? So what Tony did, he said, was the same thing as my coach, but what Tony didn't have the time to do was go, what's your time worth? And nobody ever asked me that. And I bet you, Jesse, right now, even you, super highly intelligent, high level guy, if I said, what's your dollar amount worth of your time right now? Not what do you think it's worth?
I don't even know, dude.
You don't know. I didn't know 4 months ago, dude. Like I didn't know 4 months ago. I had to have somebody else calculate it for me. And they go, your time is worth 36,000. We know that if we allocate Pace on a thing, on a video, on a, you're closing a sale. Like I'll give you a good example. Last year, June 10th, I bought a company. It was a $5 million company. Nobody but me could have closed that deal. So I needed to be on that phone. That phone call, that 1 hour of my time on that phone call with that seller, helped us acquire half of a business that's doing $2.5 million, $5 million. So we acquired $2.5 million of a business in 1 hour of my time. And so my team, my partners, the people that work on my team or with me, they rely on me to allocate my time appropriately. How dare I not know what my time is worth? That's what my coach told me. He's like, how dare you not know what your time is worth? You need to double down on the things that you are the only one can do. And he actually made me feel really embarrassed. I would look back at the 74 things that I was saying yes to last year that I now am saying no to them. I felt embarrassed, like how stupid I was that I thought those were things I should have been doing or that I was even remotely good at.
Dude, I love that. So you're cutting out the things that you don't necessarily need to be involved in, but you're focusing on the things that you're uniquely qualified to do, and everything else is being delegated off. So you're like, only you can do the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right,
like I'll give you a good example. Okay. Specifically for you, I'm going to pretend like nobody's listening to you and I talk.
All right, cool.
Okay. So I do this crazy stuff where I like bought a van for just going around and spending time with my community. Once I figured this out in December, I said, wow, I have a lot of extra time in my week. I'm going to fill it up with things that are meaningful for me. So I gave away 52 Thursdays over the next year. So 52 weeks worth of Thursdays. I am bringing in 9 to 10 of my community members to me in person, whether it's in Phoenix or in Montana, wherever I'm at the time. And I'm going to use that van to drive around, tour properties for an hour or two, go fishing, go shotgun shooting, go do fun things and like really connect with them. And while that seems like I'm just having fun, the reality is I connect on such a deep level. I truly care about people so much, just like you, bro. Like it's what I admire about you. Like you are a true good friend. You're a great connector. And when you are around people, you truly make a connection that cannot be replaced by just another team member, right? So if I'm spending time with my community, then I'm doing more deals. Last year, we bought $165 million in real estate, and $100 million of it came from people inside of the Sub-2 community. So there's a direct correlation with the success of our acquisition department in putting things in our portfolio by how much time I spend with people in my community. Now, if I replace that, let's say I put a team member in that position, are they going to have the same level of connection, love, admiration for these community members than I will? No, they might be mechanically be able to drive the van, mechanically have conversations with them, but do they know how to navigate the conversations for everlasting relationships that will bring deal flow, private money, companies, all that? Like we're buying an excavation company right now in Arizona that was brought to us from a community member that, in my community, we also teach people how to buy businesses with creative finance. So one of my community members, like, that's my focal point. I was like, yeah, come spend a day with me. I'll teach you everything I know. He's like, what? Like, I never paid you to do that. I'm like, yeah, just come over here. I'll connect with you. We'll do the thing. He goes out, finds this excavation company. Now we're buying a $4 million excavation company, makes $600,000 a year with creative finance because I connected with somebody on a level that nobody was able to do. Not that they were willing to do. Because I can tell you, Jesse, you're a visionary, right? You see things in people that they don't see themselves yet, right?
100%, yeah.
And so if that is the case with you as a visionary, you should be doubling down on those unique skills of your own, because then a couple of things. When you believe in the community members in your community, they rise up as warriors to carry your brand, your flag, your community symbol. So you look at my army. I mean, we have 13,800 Sub-2 community members. If you ever try to mess around with Pace Morby, you have an army of people that will come and murder you, right?
Yes.
And the reason being is because I have uniquely, genuinely, authentically desired to connect with them with no ulterior motive. But while doing that over the last 4 years, I have seen the fruits of the labor and the seeds that I planted of these connections that now produce income. So like Tanisha, who's also in your program, Tanisha, we call her the heart. She's unbelievable.
Killing it.
She's killing it. She's doing great. She's learned so much from you. She freaking admires you, loves you. I got to go to her wedding, bro. Like, these are not just students to me. I flew out to go to her wedding, and there was like 15 people at this wedding. I'm one of 15 people. So what I'm bringing up with Tanisha is that Tanisha is just as much the Sub2 brand as I am at this point. And because of that, people bring her deals. And then because they're bringing her deals, they bring me deals. And Tanisha and I are partners, I think, in 3 or maybe 4 properties. And when you can connect with people, early on, you plant that seed, 3 years later, there's fruit that gets born, which is crazy to even think about. And having the faith in that is really, really hard. And most people are not willing to do that, is to be faithful in the process, right? Most people, I'll tell you, like you and I are very different. There's very few people, I think, in the education space that are similar to you and I in this regard, is that community is everything. And what will happen is most people that have a coaching program, ick, or a mentorship program, ick, I look at that and I'm like, you guys are trying to sell something whereas I'm trying to build something, primarily relationships with real human being, across the country. And it's hard. The work that I do is hard. If I told you every little thing I do to build community that nobody sees, you would go, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Or you would go, damn, I do a lot of those things myself, which I'm sure that there's a lot of them you do that nobody sees. But most people in the education space are like, I'm just trying to sell a course, buy my shit or don't, I don't care. And that's not what builds everlasting connections. And also, guess what happens? Nobody's going to send you deals when they don't have connections with you. And so for me, I'm an acquisition guy.
Yeah.
I want to acquire, which means I have to acquire a relationship before I can acquire a house.
Yeah. And that's where you are so different. In fact, I wrote this was a note, and I'm just thinking about it right now. There was I don't know if it's a guy on Instagram or a team or whatever it is. I forget the name. Baller Busters. You know who those guys are?
Yeah.
Bunch of knuckleheads. They wrote something about Brian Pineda, and I saw that you wrote this on there, and I loved it because I don't see any other people of your caliber doing this. It was people, basically that account is like people slamming the coaching industry, which rightly so. I think there's some really shitty coaches out there that don't care about the people. They don't care about a community, none of that stuff. So, and you were basically somebody was slamming Ryan. Again, that company was whoever they were slamming Ryan Pineda, and you were like, dude, this guy's like creating an actual legitimate business. I would love to get on a call with you and talk about it. Like nobody's going to go out and do those kinds of things. And and you believe that like what you're doing is actually true. And I'm seeing it, like when we just started this off, we talked about your community has a soul, like it lives and breathes. Like what I feel is a legitimate soul. And anywhere that I go, I connect with people, I could feel a part of that energy that you've, kind of instilled in people, and they have themselves, because there's something great about being able to see somebody that wants to build something. Doesn't matter if they're poor or whatever, like somebody that has money will want to help that person. It's such a random, weird thing. Like I do that.
It's, the phrase, and this goes into the Ryan Pineda thing, plus what you're talking about, is if you think about everything as your vibe will attract your tribe.
Right.
Right. And I attract a very specific type of person. We will have some crossover, but we don't really, we attract a very specific person because people are, they radiate or they resonate with us. Right.
Right.
So I look at that account and I sent them a very respectful message. And I said, hey guys, like, think about what else you could do with your platform. Think about the positivity you could create. Instead, what you're doing is you're posting this kind of stuff, which only attracts hateful, deceitful, angry people to your platform. I believe you guys could do better, and I'd love to chat with you about it, was my message to them.
Yeah.
And they actually respectfully, I had like 100 people like my comment. And there's a couple of people that like make comments underneath me. Oh yeah, you're another Ryan Pineda. I was like, this isn't even about Ryan Pineda. I do love Ryan Pineda. He is a friend of mine, but I look at the way that person's using their platform. They are it's like fishing. Think about this. If I am fishing with a fly fishing rod, right, with a very specific color and size and all that kind of stuff, I'm attracting a specific type of fish. If I throw out a hot dog on a hook, I'm going to get a catfish. Okay. I'm going to get some piece of crap, dirty ass fish that I don't want on my hook. And so you throw out your bait is your social media, your message, your brand, and you attract the exact type of people that you're throwing bait to. And so I'm looking at these guys and I'm like, you know what? You guys are using your platform for evil, and you're only attracting negative, angry people that are never, going to do business with you because they're victim mentality. Like, where is the monetization in being a negative, hateful person on social media? How do you make money from that? And why is that important? It's important because when I make money, the person that exchanges money with me or goods and services with me also makes money.
Yep.
And so I look at that and I go, we should all just be helping each other make money. How is this platform and this message, one, helping Ryan Pineda? Great. You might not care about Ryan, so let's delete him from the conversation. But two, you. How does it logically help you whatsoever? Because all you see in those comments are, yeah, F that guy, and they go on and on. I'm like, I don't want to have anything to do with those people. Those are the most disgusting people on planet Earth. They just are hateful, right?
Right.
So what also happens, this is what's great about your community, is that your vibe of loving, caring, genuine, authentic, ways that you show up also attract those same type of people. And so the reason the Sub-2 community has a soul, a living, breathing organism, is because, one, of how much time I spend. Like in 17 minutes, I'm starting a 5-hour Zoom with the Sub-2 community. We call it Sub-2 Family Night on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
We do 39 Zooms a week for the last 4 years. We spend an extraordinary amount of time together like a family. And because of that, it creates a culture. It creates a connection, and culture connection equals community. And you look at that, and there's very few people. If not, there's less than three. There's 3 or less people in this entire industry that have the ability or desire even to do that.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about you attracting a tribe, because I feel like, as people are going through their entrepreneurial journey, or they're surrounded by people that are negative or that have that mindset, you will start to the person that you are, you might have a different mindset, but if you're around those people, you will start to think that way. Even it'll start to creep into a certain degree. It just happens, right? You've heard of the thing that you're around the 5 people you're around, you resonate with them. You start to think like them.
I had a situation the other night. I'll tell you, this is so interesting. So I have a friend of mine from out of town, right? We go to dinner, and I haven't seen this guy in like 15 years. But he's like, oh yeah, I saw you did this. I saw you on social media here. I got this buddy of mine that says that he follows you, and like, oh, so what's going on in your life, type of thing. And I'm like, oh, we're going down this road. Okay. So I go, well, I'm doing this and doing this and doing this. And very quickly I realized that my conversation to him sounds like I'm bragging.
Right.
To a guy like you, who's my collaborator, somebody who I champion and you champion me. And if I don't see you at the finish line, I'm going to be pissed off at you.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to try and trip you along the way. I'm going to stop, turn around, pick your ass up and go, Jesse, no, we're getting across this finish line. And you would do the same thing for me. I'm so used to that environment the last several years by choosing and picking myself to be in those rooms. Sometimes by buying myself into the room. Sometimes by serving myself into the room, whatever I could do to get in that room. So I'm at dinner with my friend, and as I'm going through these things, he starts telling me problems of his life and what he's dealing with. And bro, these are like the most basic run-of-the-mill problems that this guy's dealing with. And on my drive home from this dinner, all I could do was for like 7 to 10 minutes think about, wait, maybe I don't deserve what I have. Like, I just got really lucky and this is all going to fall apart and my life is going to go back to the way it was. And I started second guessing everything about my life. This was a week ago.
Yeah.
This wasn't 10 years ago when my mental fortitude wasn't built up. Bro, my mindset is strong today, and being around that person for 2 hours made me second guess everything in my life that I'm like, wait, maybe I don't deserve a nice house. Maybe I don't deserve a portfolio. Maybe the worst part was maybe I don't deserve all these amazing team members that believe in me. Like this guy can't even find one good qualified person to work for his company. And I'm sitting there going, oh, I just got really lucky. This is dude, you being around the other people is the hack of all. It's the hack of all hacks. Yep. You want to be successful, stand next to somebody successful and have a conversation with them and listen to them and be around their energy and feel that freaking, have their molecules vibrate near your molecules. You will change, man. You will freaking change. Good, bad, or indifferent, you will change.
100%, man. I agree with that so much. And you're right. There's a part of, maybe you remember this in your life. I was about 27 years old when I finally realized, like, I can't be around these people anymore, because what they're doing is they're smoking weed all day long. They're living in their parents' basements. Like, I remember literally separating myself in changing. That's when I got into the Tony Robbins stuff back in, when I was 27 years old. I started to change the way that I thought, right? And this is when the internet was barely, it's not what it is now, but it was kind of barely starting to get going. And we had YouTube. We can get online and watch these things. But yeah, dude, I 100% agree with that. It's such a crazy thing. Even somebody at your level can have a conversation with someone, and that conversation shifts your energy. Your energy was literally shifted. And I'm a big believer in energy and, vibration, which I know you talk about too. Like, I 100% believe in that. And there's something incredible that happens. God created us in this way where we get around people and we vibrate at these certain levels, and you'll feel that energy from people. Like, literally, I'm not kidding. Like, you can literally feel the energy, but it has to be something you're conscious of and you're aware of. And you have that down, man. I think you nailed it perfectly. And it's crazy how in this, you're worth, again, we're going back to worth, you're worth 36,000, but you've also built and created, how many people are you even employing? There's probably hundreds and hundreds of people.
600 people.
600 people that you're employing.
But I own businesses with a lot of employees, right? So like my real estate portfolio probably employs 20 people. Everything else, like Start Virtual, we own a virtual assistant company that has 300 employees, and I have other businesses that own stuff, smatterings of, a bunch of people, but 600 people. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's where I was going, is that what you're being fed by the people that you're connected to, that trickles down into your ecosystem. That's your leadership. And I've watched the people that again, this is one of the things that I really love about you, is that you create leaders that don't even know that they have that leadership capability yet. And you'll pull them aside. You'll go to events with them. You'll invite them to your own home. And that's something that I really love about you, man, that you'll pull somebody up, maybe that never had anybody that had that influence in their life. And you'll tell them, like, I see what you're available. I see what the availability is in you and what you could do. And they will now have that second tier. They go to that second tier, then they'll go to that third, and they'll go to that fourth. And you probably have, Tanisha's probably one of them. She probably started out in a certain spot, and then all of a sudden,
bro, she wouldn't even turn her camera on Zoom. This was 3 years ago. And I called her out. What was cool about Tanisha is, our Zooms are pretty big. We have 300 to 800 people come on our Zooms at a time, just in our private group, right? So we have a lot of people in there. And what I noticed about Tanisha, she would pop in, she'd make a couple of little comments here and there. Oh, that's great. That's interesting. This is 3 years ago. And one day she started, as people are asking me questions on Q&A, she would start putting the link to a previous way I answered that exact question in the side chat. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, who are you? What? This is amazing. And so I pulled her up. She refused to turn her camera on. I was like, you put your damn camera on right now, or else I'm kicking you out of here. So she forces herself to turn her camera on, and here she is. She's got a YouTube channel. She's crushing it. She's doing incredibly well. She's doing Mid-Term Rental. She's learned a lot of stuff from you. And she talks about you all the time in our community. And so do I. I tell people all the time, hey, he's a great professor. You should go. I look at all of us educators as professors in a big college, and people should go to me for specific things, and you to specific things, etc. And she was plucked out of obscurity. And so she says to me all the time, she says, you saw something in me that I never saw in my life. And now I look back on myself and laugh that I never saw what you saw. But that's something that visionaries have. Guys like you have the same thing. Guys like me, we can see things that other people can't see. And that is the advantage of having a visionary on the planet, is the gift of foresight.
I totally agree with that, man. I know you got to jam out of here in the next few minutes to your other meeting, but I want to ask you a couple questions, because this is something that it's always been in the back of my head on how you do it. And not only how, because I go through the same thing where I get to go travel places. I sometimes have to leave my family, or I get to take them with me. I know that you have a newborn. He's 4 months old now?
Yeah, 3 months.
3 months. How do you handle the separation between your family, and because that's so important to me, same as you, I really love my family. I want to be around them, even when we're not doing anything, dude. I just want to be around them. How do you get to travel so much, and not get to, but how do you feel? How are you able to separate yourself from that loss? It's
incredibly hard, and I'm aware of the feeling and the emotion I have. To put them into perspective, I'd say I'm in my bed 70 nights, or 70%, 80% of the time during the year, right? But that still leaves, let's say 30% of the year. That's 90 days I'm traveling around the country, right?
Yeah.
So let's take 40 of those 90 days and say my wife and my kids are with me. So that's 50 days, right? That's a day a week I'm not in my bed with my family, sleeping next to my wife and all that kind of stuff. So it's significant. Sometimes I'll go 3 weeks without traveling. And then I'll go 7 days traveling straight. Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
So I'll give you a couple of hacks. Okay. Hack number 1 is something you will not expect me to say. Number 1, do some research on people that are highly successful and, more importantly, who have changed the world and changed the industry that they are meant to lead. None of them were able to spend as much time with their family as you and I currently, even in our chaotic lives, have the ability to do. I'll give you a really good example. I'm in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. My wife and I are on this little nature walk, and we start reading the nature. There's like these little signs of this city all around the city. It's like sign number 1, sign number 2. We then start going around to like all 15 signs, and it tells the story of the founders of like Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And it talked about how people came out here, they settled, and they put 15 years of work into settling a city to create income and economy and bridges and all of these things. And then they sent money to England to their wife and kids to come and spend time to move to that place. These people sacrificed 15 years of not being with their wife and kids, right? I got to start step number 1. The thing that most people would not expect to hear is have gratitude for the fact that we live in a day and age where I can do and accomplish big things and not live 15 years away from my family, right?
Yeah.
I also look at other people's professions. I have somebody in my community, her husband is a shrimp boat captain. He's gone for 2 weeks offshore, back home for 2 weeks. And when he's home for 2 weeks, he's working a side hustle. So she only sees him during the night times during those 2 weeks. Yeah. And she is so grateful for that time with her husband and him with the kids and all of that kind of stuff. And her coming from an attitude of gratitude versus the woman that was standing next to her when she was telling me the story is like, wow, my husband's home every night. And I bitch and moan when he goes and plays golf with his friends. So that's step number 2. Have an amazing partner that knows that they they got together with a spouse that was meant to change the world. As hokey as that might sound.
No, I agree, man.
Your wife specifically knows you are meant to change the world. I know that. I've had this conversation with her at dinner. Yeah. She knows you are meant to change the world and change and improve our industry as a total. So in order to do that, okay, you're going to have to sacrifice stuff. You already know this. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the audience. So those are the first 2 steps that I take immediately. Step number 3, obviously my family travels with me. Step number 4 is I batch all of my stuff together. So for example, I'll say no to things very specifically if they are not in alignment with what I'm doing. So for example, Sam Prim, I don't know if you're friends with Sam Prim. Great.
Yeah, Sam, yeah.
Cool guy, does Burr strategy. Him and I tease each other back and forth on the internet all the time. Which is what, we're meant to have fun with each other and collaborate and tease each other like we're in high school,
I agree.
He sends me a text. He goes, yo, I'd love to see you in St. Louis. And this is what I do. I go, let me check my schedule and see where I'm going at some time around St. Louis. And I go, I'm going to be in Atlanta on April 6th. Then my wife and kids are going to fly in on April 7th. We're going to go to the Masters together. And then I'll give you a week, okay, of my life. This is what'll happen. On a week where I schedule travel, Sam Prim goes, well, why don't you come in the day before? I go, perfect. I'll fly to St. Louis. I've never been there, 1. 2, I get to connect with Sam Prim in his local market. 3, I've never been there, which means I have not spent time with my own community in St. Louis. Yeah. And so I'll be able to find physical relationships and connections that I can rely on in St. Louis when somebody else in my community in Florida goes, who should I call in St. Louis? And I go, oh, dude, I just hung out with John. He's freaking awesome. He's da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I always kill 15 birds with 1 stone. I'm always going to a place with 25 things. I will never speak on stage unless I have a meetup that night or the day before. Never. I will speak on the biggest stages in our industry, and I go, as only if I can have a meetup inside the lobby or here or blah, 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 as one of my caveats. Then I leave Sam Prim. I'll go to Atlanta. I'm going to run a charity event with Charlie Rocket in Atlanta with Big Boy from Outkast, right here, actually.
So cool.
It's going to be cool. And then my wife and kids fly in on the 7th to Atlanta. I'll show them around the city because she's never been there. I'll go film and look at houses that I own and some properties I own there. And Eric will then fly home. I'll go to the Masters. Then my wife and kids will fly home to Arizona, and I will fly to Tony Robbins' house and hang out with Dean Graziosi and Jim Quick and all those guys for 3 days, and then I'll fly home. So I'm never away from my wife and kids for an entire week. Yeah. But if I am traveling heavy, I'll usually fly them in the middle. We'll do some activities, and then they fly back, and I continue on that week. So if I'm on the East Coast, all of that's East Coast stuff. St. Louis, Atlanta, West Palm Beach, right? So I'll kill all of those legs of that journey of the East Coast, and I'll knock that off for 6 months, and I don't have to go back to that area for 6 months. And if somebody says 2 months later, hey, will you come speak on our stage? Now what's happening is people go, hey, will you come speak on my stage? I go, I can't, I'm booked out.
Yeah.
You gotta schedule me for next year. And now what it does is it trains people that are asking me to speak or do things, ask me for 2025. And I'm now booking speaking engagements for 2025. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have been doing that 2 years ago and saying, hey, I can't right now, even if I could. I can't right now. Why don't we book it for next year? I'll come to your event next year. And so it's been hard, but again, having gratitude. And also I read the statistic, Jesse, that from 1970 till now, men nowadays spend 700% more time with their families than they did in the 1970s. 700% more. Yeah. And I look at that and I'm like, we're spoiled. And no matter, so here's the toughest thing. No matter how much time I spend with my kids, I only want to spend more time with my kids. The biggest hack is that I have 2 big offices with team members in both those offices. I don't go to either one of those offices, and there's an absolute requirement for me to go to those offices, right? I have operators and integrators and all the things. I work from home. So when people are in town, they want to hang out and have a meeting, I go, great, come into my house. I can work out from my house. My wife and I can sneak out for a little makeout session. I hang out with my kids, push them on the swing. Right before I came out here, I squoze out every last minute because I was holding my daughter and I had a bunch of people inside the house and I was talking and jamming out and doing whatever. I've consolidated and gotten rid of travel time, got rid of like going to the office time, got rid of all that kind of stuff. And I've squozed all of that time and poured into my kids, my wife, etc. So when I am home, I'm home all day long versus
it's intentional.
It's very intentional, right? Yeah. And so there's all of those things that I could go on and on and on about. But I also go, do I want my kids to not look at their father as a man who changed the world? Now, is there ego there? Sure, there is ego there. I think ego drives all of us to a certain degree. It is my life after all. This is a life that I am living. It's my only life. God gave me this life. Yes, I am a servant and I am meant to help other people, but aren't I supposed to challenge myself to new heights so I can show my children that it's possible?
Yeah.
And if there is ego involved in that, so be it. Right? But my kids, I'm giving them a blueprint of this is what our life looks like. We can and we do change the industry that we live inside of. And so part of my time away from home, I'm creating waves in the industry. I'm not just going to a seminar. I'm changing the world around me. And you're doing the same thing, right? Like you're going and speaking. You're going and meeting with your people. You're networking with high-level people. Like when you leave, you have a mission that you are accomplishing and you're bringing benefits back to your wife and your kids.
Yeah. I love that, dude. I love that. And that was me selfishly asking that because that's something that I've been balancing with. Like, how do I figure this out? How do I do this? How does it make sense? And watching you do it has been so awesome. Pace, I know you got to jam out of here, dude. I'm so grateful that, first off, you were born and that you are here hanging out and that you're changing lives. And that's what I feel is so important. And you probably hear it all the time. There's such a wonderful feeling about having somebody come to you saying, like, dude, you changed my life. And I want that for everybody. Yeah, I really do. But, man, I appreciate you for... I appreciate
you. I appreciate our relationship, our friendship. I appreciate watching you. I champion you. I look at you from the sidelines of your game that I get to watch. And I look at you almost like a Netflix special. I get to watch your character development. I get to watch the things that you're overcoming. And you're giving me a show to watch, bro. And I'm so proud of you as a friend and as also an industry leader in what you're doing. And you get to change people's lives too. So what's cool is, yeah, this is all about profit. But what's cool is that you get to earn profit while you're creating a purpose and changing other people and giving them a purpose as well. So super, super grateful for you in my life too. Thank you so much, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. Be around purposeful people. They do a lot of things. Pace, you're one of them. I appreciate you, man. I know you got to jam out of here. So awesome. This will be out soon. So check it out, folks. Appreciate it, man.